There. Okay. Can you hear me now? Is that a yes? Okay.
Yeah, we hear you, Katie.
Okay. Okay. This is strange. It's strange not to be able to hear you folks out there. Anyway, my name is Katie, and I'm kind of an alcoholic. Kind of an alcoholic who drank more than 2 or 3 or 4 other people all combined. Kind of an alcoholic that was sometimes that sometimes came out of a blackout in the middle of a sentence in a room full of people I'd never met before in a house I'd never seen. I was an alcoholic whose values changed with how much I drank and who I was with. Ultimately, I was an alcoholic who left all 4 of my children in Africa with their father because I thought I should take my kind of sick self back home to the States since I clearly had gone crazy. I came home wearing a coat of shame. I loved my children and I had left them with a man I didn't even like. And that shame got me on the road to recovery. I got sober with the grace of a loving God, the fellowship of AA, and the steps of a program that, while difficult, made me a whole person. Not perfect or even close to perfect, but whole. I'm much more of an authentic person than I've ever been in the past, and honest than I've ever been in my whole life. That journey made my dry date May 17th of 1979. I had been suffocating, keeping so many secrets. I thought that I would stand somewhere and just die if I had to have anybody know my secrets. But I didn't. Here I am, and I'm standing straight in front of you knowing you will get it. We are in this boat together, and there is no one I would rather be with than you guys. I don't know where to start. I was an unruly child. Those are my mom's words. I grew up on a hobby farm, and I spent a lot of time going in and out of my bedroom window. I'm sure you can perhaps understand that. I had my driver's license early, and I drove places I'd never been before. I picked up hitchhikers. I got them to buy alcohol for me. And ultimately, I was sent to boarding school, where I continued my unruliness. My 2 roommates were similar, and we each had a bottle of Levoris on the sink in the room that we all shared. And that bottle was full of vodka with red food coloring. There was also a large stop sign, a real, at the end of your Okay. I considered that stop sign kind of a badge of courage because it took a lot of bravery with a handful of funny tools to climb up and unscrew that stop sign, take it down, and bring it home. Boarding school I went to was not impressed by it, but that's the sort of thing I always had set up. It was kind of me and my outlandish ideas versus the police, my parents, and other people like that. I married, I want to say one more thing about that. That contrary thinking. After I moved here 3 years ago, I found out that probably someone here would have said, this girl just ain't right. Is that a Tennessee statement or a Southern statement? It seems as though it is. I married at 19. I was 4.5 months pregnant. My father, who had beaten my brothers and I occasionally, seemed to be glad that I was just about out of the house and out of his hair. He was not happy with my college grades, and I was tired of going to college. My first husband, Lowell, worked for the CIA, and the company, That's what they called it. The company provided me with perfect geographic cures. First, we lived in Liberia, West Africa. We were there for 2.5 years, and our second son, John, was born there in a Liberian hospital. Next, we went to Iran, to a base by the Caspian Sea, close to the Russian border, and we lived there for 1.5 years. Women were not allowed to drive there. You can't even imagine how frustrating that was for me because I was always kind of packed and ready to go. My drinking increased dramatically, my behavior was dramatic, and my vocabulary at that point was colorful. I read a lot of Steinbeck, I played a lot of pool, and I taught kindergarten. And then my father got cancer, and I left Iran and I went home, probably just in the nick of time. Third country that we lived in was Colombia in South America, where I had our third son and we adopted our daughter. We lived there for 2 years. And have I said how grateful I am that none of my children have fetal alcohol syndrome, because I knew that that was a possibility. Fourth country was Guatemala, land of earthquakes. Lowell was TDY to Chile, and the kids and I were through an incredible earthquake in Guatemala City. I had never really been in one that big before, and we had temporary beds that were on rollers. And this was a side-to-side earthquake. There are thumpers, and then there are side-to-side. And the beds were rolling across the room. I could hear people screaming in the streets. I had 2 of the kids in the bedroom with me, and wow, it was scary. I was good in a crisis. I don't know if any of you have been like that. I could drink, and then I could be good in a crisis, and then later I would just completely fall apart. Fifth country we lived in was Venezuela, and it was a very different place then. It was a nice place to live. It was beautiful there. But I got lost a bit in my disease there. And then we went back to Liberia again in West Africa. This was the end. This was the worst of my disease at every turn. I was teaching kindergarten in the American Cooperative School. I would drink, smoke stuff, half, if not all of the night before. I'd be sick and tired. And the staff bathroom was right across the hall from my classroom. Teachers worried about my continued case of malaria, the symptoms of which are nausea and headaches. And I had a lot of both of those. There seemed to be no limit kind of to my behavior. A Peace Corps friend of mine who lived on the Sierra Leone border asked if I would want to come and visit. And I went to the guys who ran the carpool at the American Embassy and asked them if I could try driving one of their Land Rovers. And they said, oh, sure. And I brought it back 3 days later. And I'd been to see my friend on the Sierra Leone border. I would never have lived this long without the program. I simply didn't know how. I was too much of a risk taker, too stupid to pay attention. And it was sad. You know, I look back on that and I think, whoa. The God of my understanding has held my hand in the middle of many nights when I was frightened. I look back at the fear I had with every AA step. Unmanageable life, hello, came to believe. Could I do that right? I always believed in God. When I was a little kid, I would walk around in the pasture and I would make up hymns and I'd sing them to my dog. It never saved me in the middle of my disease, though. How to turn my life over. Step 4, write it down. Are you serious? Really, I thought whoever designed this is brutal. I would call my sponsor crying, and her empathic response was always, what step do you suppose you're working right now, Katie? She was awful, and I hated her. I just hated her. and she was always telling me what to do. Without that sponsor, who I often lovingly refer to as Lynette the bitch, I would never have gotten sober. If someone had been gentle with me, I wouldn't have been able to do it. I worked hard at this. I've always worked hard at this because I don't want to lose it. And I've seen people who kind of become less interested in attending meetings, or other things become more important to do, and then I see them shaking and sweating after they've been out there for a while. I did a second, fourth, and fifth step when I had been sober for 30 years. And that time I wasn't scared because I knew what those steps could do to set me free. After I'd been sober for a couple of years, I married a man in AA. It only lasted a couple of years. He wasn't done drinking and being unruly, and I didn't know if I could stay sober if I stayed with him. I went back to college, and I had really good grades. I'd flunked out the first time, and I even won an academic scholarship. I want to share some things that have happened since I got sober. I met a man in AA, and he wasn't crazy. It's kind of tricky, to find somebody in AA that seems kind of balanced, and that was pretty exciting. And we went out, and maybe 8 months later, we got married. This June 16th, we will be married for 25 years. And in addition to my 4 now adult children and his 2 adult children, we have adopted my great-grandson. He's 13 now, and we could talk all day about what puberty does to little 13-year-old boys, couldn't we? Anyway, so we've been together a long time, and he got cancer just before we moved here. And I remember sitting in a parking lot with him just before he had his radiation treatment. And we just sat there and cried and hugged each other. Cancer's a scary thing. And I don't want to lose this man. So he just had another PET scan, and it came back just fine, which is great. I want to share some things with you guys that I think are really important and have kind of, I have to remain perfectly clear about my soul being restored by God in the program. I don't ever make fun of that. I don't ever make fun of the fact that it's Christmas and I'm going to a meeting. I don't ever make fun of any of that. I still go to at least 3 meetings a week, 2 mixed, 1 women's. We have a great women's meeting. I'm looking at a lot of women on the screen here. Colonial Heights has open women's meetings on Wednesday night at 6:30, and all of you would be welcome. And the mixed meetings are absolutely great too. I think that something changes for women when they go to meetings with other women. I didn't like women. When I got sober, I didn't like women at all. And I sure didn't want to be in a meeting with just women. And then my sponsor came up to me and said it was time I started going to that. And I thought, oh, please. I thought women were backstabbing. They would tell other people everything that I ever said, et cetera, et cetera. And I was so wrong. I do think women need women. My friend Faye and I are in agreement that that women do need women. I also attend Al-Anon. Most of the people I love are chemically dependent. And I need Al-Anon to keep me straight about what is mine to do for others and what isn't. And someone said to me once, how do you know if you're codependent, if you should be going to Al-Anon? And my answer that Al-Anon taught me was that you know when you are doing things for someone that they could do for themselves. And it kind of takes away their self-respect when we do that. So I'd always been codependent, and then I went to Al-Anon for a long time. And then one of my sons, John, was in a terrible car accident. He was in a car. He was in the back seat of a car with his wife, and a snowplow in Minnesota pulled off from the side and hit their vehicle sideways. He broke his back in 4 places and shattered his right leg. And at that time, I think he had been sober like 16 years. And all of my codependency just came flying back. His wife took his kids and moved to Texas or something, and he came to live with us for a while. He needed some more surgeries, and just like that, I was, would you like me to call the doctor for you, John, and make an appointment? Would you like me to do this or that? What can I get for you from the store? It just, it's like breathing. My codependency is like breathing. And by the way, Sean, our 13-year-old, does not have a single relative that I'm aware of that isn't chemically dependent. Anyway, one of the things that I have written down in the back of my book, well, there's a bunch of stuff. There's I want to tell you about what we can expect from our family members if you're kind of new in the program. I'd probably been sober about 9 months when a bunch of women and I met at one of their homes. Oh no. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And we just sat there and talked until almost 1 o'clock in the morning. And there was quite the storm outside, and I got home, so it was about 1:30 when I got home. Big drifts in the roads, big problems. And my son Rob was waiting inside, and he was standing there like this. Who could he possibly have been mimicking when he was standing there like that? Anyway, he said, "And where have you been, Mom?" So I told him that I'd been with my friends over at different Katie Rankin's house, and he said, "Really? Well, let me hug you." And he hugs me, and he's in the side of my neck going to see what I've been doing. Because when I drank, I really smell like alcohol. And then he said, "Can I check in your purse? I wanted to see if there was any gum in there." I said, "Of course you can check in my purse. You just look anywhere you want to." And at first I was really angry. I had been sober 9 months, 9 of the longest months of my life. And there he was, not trusting me. And what I learned was that many of us have experiences like that, and we feel hurt because we've been working hard and so on and so forth. But the truth is, we taught them not to trust us. I taught all 4 of my children that they could not trust me, that they wouldn't know where I was or what I was doing. And man, that was really hard. It was hard. And so we kind of had these early evening meetings, and we talk about how are you feeling and what are you scared of, and I posted on the wall. Somebody told me about this, a sheet of paper that said, "These are the smoke signals. If you hear me say, I don't think I'll go to my meeting tonight, I'm kind of tired. I'm going to be down at the bar down there, where I used to go dance a lot. I'm just going to go and listen to the music. Or if I don't get up and go to work in the morning." Those are smoke signals for somebody like me. If the fire breaks out, This is what you are to do. You are to call Lynette, my sponsor, and you are to know that she will probably have to take me to detox, and she will get someone to come and stay with you. It was hard. I didn't want to put it up. I didn't want to do that. And I did it anyway. Because quite honestly, I needed all kinds of stuff like that. Everybody's little ideas, I would just soak them up. I was 33 when I got sober, and I was, maybe 14 going on 15 in my head. So that's how that went. Somebody taught me once a saying that goes, does it need to be said? Does it need to be said right now? And does it need to be said by me? I think most codependents can really be helped by that saying. I don't know if it grabs you guys or not, but it's something that runs through my mind when I catch myself kind of being unsure if I want to say something to someone or not. Maybe it's not a good idea. If I even think like that, then it's not a good idea, period. My story is the same as yours. That's another thing I learned, that, I may have lived those places, but my story is like yours. We didn't get here because things were going along so good. That's not how I arrived. And it's important to me to know that we have these similarities. As soon as I start thinking I'm different from you, I'm going to be in trouble. It would be a bad plan. The truth is that I have been self-centered, irresponsible, rebellious, lonely, dishonest, all of those things. Even in early sobriety, it was incredibly hard for me to quit lying. So at first, I decided that I would always tell the truth in a meeting or at the club, and I would always tell the truth in my house. And after a year, when I'd gotten good at that, then I decided that I would just plain stop lying. My son just walked in. Anyway, and things like that, things that I had done to hide who I was or not to put myself in a risky place with somebody, that kind of lying was real easy for me for a long time. Then someone taught me that fear is not factual. That fear is a feeling, and feelings aren't fatal. I think by that time, my sponsor, Lynette, was probably sick of hearing me say, I'm scared, I'm scared. Push. I learned about push, which means pray until something happens. I am not Catholic, but I have a rosary that someone gave me once. And I often pray with it because it helps me stay focused. I spent a long time at a Native American reservation in Minnesota, earning CEUs for my job at the time, which was, I was working in Stillwater Prison as a therapist. And I learned there that I could put tobacco out to each of the 4 winds, and that would help me stay focused. Praying can, if I'm really scattered, I need to do something to keep me paying attention. God meeting good orderly direction, things like that. I have had an acceptance pamphlet. They're only like this big. They're like that. It's blue and white, has a dove on the cover. My sponsor told me I had to read it every single night, and it took a little while. I mean, it wasn't tiny. Every single night before I went to sleep. And after the end of a month, she asked me how I was feeling about my ex-husband, Lowell, and the agency. Well, I feel better. I don't badmouth him all the time now. And she said, are you praying for him? Lord Almighty. Yep, I am praying for him. I wouldn't say I do it in the most loving way, but I am praying for him. that he have a good life. She said, read it for another month. Those are the kinds of things that made huge differences to me, to do that kind of thing. I sponsor a fair number of people and women, and I am sponsored. I walked into the Colonial Heights meeting, and this woman walked up to me and just put her hand out, and I shook it. And then I listened to her talk in the meeting, and I thought, I can do this. I can ask her. I did, and she said, okay. And the next night she called me up and she said, will you be my sponsor? And I said, okay. And we've been doing that for 3 years. I always wanted to be a woman of integrity. If you had been as dishonest as I had been, and dishonest with people you loved, you probably have had that same wish that you could be a person of integrity and you could be authentic. And that has really remained my hope. I would like to be the woman that God wants me to be. Sometimes I kind of do okay, and other times I don't do okay. You know, you have a sign, Stephen, in SIG that says something about there isn't swearing in the big book or something. It's green sign, I think, up on the wall. I saw that sign, and I'm a really profane person, and please don't. And I thought, I don't know if I can go to meetings here. It's kind of my one last little hallelujah thing to be able to swear when I want to. Anyway, I don't swear much around my son.
Yeah, you do.
No, see, there we have it. He thinks I haven't given enough of it up. But it's, it just falls in that category of things that at my age, I shouldn't be walking around swearing. So I'm trying not to be. I have found that people here in Tennessee are nice.
Well,
Sean, please leave now. I think they're nice. I think they're kind. They've been really nice to me. I always thought that Minnesota and Wisconsin were incredibly friendly places to live. And 2 years ago, I went home because my best friend's son was trying to die from his addiction to meth. And so I'd lived here for a year, and I'm walking down the streets outside the hospital, just going for a walk, just getting out of the hospital for a little bit. And everybody who walked by me said, hi. How you doing? Nice day, isn't it? No, wait a minute. That's not right. That's what they do here. Back there, when I walked around the hospital, nobody said anything to me. And I thought, I think I was wrong. I think Tennessee really is a much more friendly place than Minnesota or Wisconsin. So I don't know what else to say. I know that life without this program would not be something I could wear well. I've learned to be a much better person. I've learned to be faithful to friends, faithful to my husband, faithful to my children. There's something about loving people and being faithful. Before I got sober, I could love people, but I wasn't necessarily faithful to their needs. And that has changed for me now. There's something I always say kind of at the end when I'm talking, and I don't know where it is now. Oh, I may not be who I want to be, and I'm probably not who I ought to be, but I truly thank God that I am not who I used to be. Thank you for listening to me. Thanks for the opportunity, Stephen.